Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sanderlanche podcast. Today, we are discussing Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, chapters 37 through 42. So a good little chunk of chapters this time. Wherein, we get is it 3 chapters of Vivenna being sad on the street? So that makes a lot of up for a lot of the space here. And
being sad on the street is underselling it a bit.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. Yeah, we'll get there. Other than that, Lightsong and Blushweaver, they have some more discussion, and Lightsong eventually goes and meets with Allmother with some interesting results. And Ciri eats dinner and has a confrontation with Trellides, which that's kind of an interesting bit as well. So I'm Data, and with me today is
Joe,
Jack,
and Jamie.
So hang on to something, everybody. The Sanderlanche is about to begin.
To emerge and to breathe anew, for a purpose so far from my own. And this world I've awoken to seems familiar but somehow unknown. And the branches of gold on the skyline reach out to the sweep of the stars. The beginnings and endings of lifetimes, a guidance of light from afar. Down,
So yeah, big chunk of chapters. Some sad stuff. Pretty depressing actually with Vivenna. What did you guys think of these? Wait a second. How many did I say? Six chapters.
yeah, wow, funny stuff. It was
knee slapper.
Yeah, no, it was depressing. I'm gonna be honest about that. The Vivenna stuff is very tragic. Almost getting to the point of selling your body for food/money. Not a feel-good story, for sure. So all of that, hate to see it. Not great. Vasher coming in at the end. I think maybe this is the turn I've been waiting for, where it's like, he takes her and he's like, oh, I'm sure by now he's heard that they're no longer like hanging out together she's not hanging together with Denth. He's chasing her. So maybe he's going to they're going to team up, hopefully, is what we're going to see in the next chapters. The Lightsong stuff, again, there's a mystery going on. We've now got confirmation that, more than one god is having premonitions of something. So that's interesting. And then the Trellides series stuff, it was good. What she bargained for, I was kind of like, oof, really? Especially if some of our other theories are correct and these pawn call people are actually not to be trusted. That would be a real bummer, but I guess we'll find out. But yeah, no, good stuff. All these chapters feel like they're leading somewhere. We're getting somewhere. Something's about to happen. So I'm excited to continue.
It does seem like that. Okay, so you backed him into a corner so you could extort a favor out of him, basically, and that's the one you picked, huh?
Yeah, it's like not what if I'm gonna extort somebody, I'm gonna get something real good. You know what I mean?
I feel like they might have just gone she's like, hey, can I get some different serving women? They would be like, we don't care. Well, yeah, sure.
Yeah, she didn't have to extort for that. She could have just said. But I guess there's a societal ranking. So if she wants them specifically to be pawn call, I guess that's something they'd be like, well, you don't understand in our society.
Yeah, maybe.
You're the vessel. That's not something that we could do because you have to maintain a certain standard of servants, and those aren't, that wouldn't fall under that standard.
Yeah, could be. Who knows what these priests would say? They have random stuff that they get upset about.
It's true.
I also thought it was interesting what you said about we now found out that there's another god having premonitions about something going on, and it made me think at this point, looking at the other gods that we've met, Calm Seer, who else, Weather Love, whoever, all the other gods, it's
Mercy Star,
yeah,
the bro gods.
In hindsight, could any of them be having visions that we don't know about, and that's influencing how they're acting for some reason or other?
I mean, for sure, but we only know about these two, so
yeah.
I mean, I know part of our job on this show is to speculate, but obviously anything in that realm would be pure speculation. I don't know.
I wonder if the God King has prophetic dreams. We haven't heard anything about that.
It's true.
Absolute laugh riot, these chapters. My God, I feel bad for Vivenna, as obviously we're meant to, but just holy shit. let's not belabor that point anymore. Girl does not deserve that. I know I've spoken against her a bit in the past, but holy fuck. As for the other stuff, Lightsong stuff was kind of okay. Still just a bit, all right, where are we going with this? Like, I feel like his story hasn't really had much of a exciting moment like so far. So I'm still just like, all right, come on, let's do something here. But I loved Ciri's confrontation with Trellides because it didn't occur to me until he showed up. It's like, we actually haven't really seen a lot of the guy. Like, he's been a constant presence, and we're all just like, oh, this fucking guy again. But he's really only shown up a handful of times, been a colossal dick for a few minutes, and then fucked off again. So it was cool to have him come down and have a conversation that wasn't just dripping with condescension and fuck you, this is my way, and then walking off. He actually spoke to Ciri, and she gave some back, and he's just like, all right, so what do we have to do about this? So I thought it was just really interesting to see him engaging with the story rather than dismissing it. So I really like that. It's like he might be a dickhead, but my god, he's fun to hate.
Gotta have one of those characters in there that you just love hating. Like in Elantris, we had Iodon. Just love hating that guy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about Lightsong's story so far. It hasn't really had a moment. And I'm like, maybe you're right. I mean, I feel like the highest moment we had was Hoyd showing up, and that's not down to Lightsong. That's just like, hey, it's Hoyd. We know him.
No, the highest moment of Lightsong's story was him playing detective.
Yeah.
Like, that was the bit where all of us were on board with like, oh yeah, this is fun. And then like there's still been a little bit of that here and there, but just not quite enough. What he did to Allmother was quite funny, where he's just like, all right, I'm gonna sit out here until she comes out. By the way, Squirrely, go.
That was good. Yeah, I love that actually.
I thought that was quite the hilarious moment. But that's Lightsong's story. It's been just kind of he lays about a bit, does something hilarious, and then lays around a bit more. I was like, all right, I'm ready for this to kick into gear.
He does a little more detective work in this section, but it's detective work that he does by sitting out on the lawn and throwing rocks at things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be the third person to say it, but these chapters were rough. Poor Vivenna. Like, every time it got to her, I was like, oh man, it's not getting better. Because, like, this is just awful, and it's weeks and weeks and weeks, and I just really felt for her. But hopefully we've seen the rock bottom for her now, and we will get some movement there, which would be good. The stuff with Lightsong, I actually quite enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty clever. He's still in his detective phase, collecting his data and analysing it and going along with that. I thought that was really cool. I'll be interested to see how that turns out, if his hunches are right. The stuff with Ciri and Trellides, though, I think was definitely the highlight for this week's chapters. I loved just like the how much she had to keep her hair under wraps because he could see that he was making her uncomfortable. And I just thought that was really cool dynamic. Like, you're trying to keep your cool, but you literally cannot show any hint of the fact that you're anxious or unsure about what you're doing or the situation you're in, because he's got you otherwise. Yeah, I'm a bit concerned about the Pan Carl women. That was a pretty big moment for bargaining, but she did get a lot of sort of information about that and some insights into Trellides, the fact that he really does seem passionate about what he's doing. I don't think he's a good character, but maybe not panicking about him as much as I was before. But overall, yeah, I'm reluctant to say a good read. Just account of the Vivenna heavy, horrible life in the slums. But I enjoyed what we got about our other characters. I'm looking forward to things getting better for Vivenna than where they are now.
It seems like it would be hard to go further down than where we were, right?
I mean, that if anyone's lower than that, I think that's a new low. I don't think you can get lower than that. That's awful. I did like I guess the good things about her chapters, the realization that if your breath was stored in something that you couldn't sense it, like it has to be stored in something with life. Also the fact that now she has no breath and seeing what that does. Like, we haven't seen a character who had breath and then had no breath.
Right.
I don't know if Vasher had none. I think he got pretty low, but I don't think he gave it all away.
No, I don't think so either. I feel like he had he definitely didn't, because he brought the little guy to life to get the keys at the beginning, even though that was when he was at his lowest.
Yeah, but he gave, and then he had to like animate the cloak or something. But I think he got down to like 25 left, or he had 50 and he got 25 left or
Yeah,
something.
I think that's right.
About that, yeah. But like I thought that was a cool moment. It's pretty scary that she saw Tongfa across the road. I was like, no. Oh, and just the reflection at the beginning of the chapter about, they played me, and like it's been months of her life trying to do one thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just awful. I feel so sorry for her.
Yeah, it's horrible for her. But your mention of like Siri and her hair thing, I feel like we're hitting again and again. It's like, here's yet another one of the lessons they tried to teach her when she was a kid, how to control your hair. And look, it's also relevant, like all the other ones that you ignored.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like she can control it to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
She chooses not to most of the time, but we know that she can control it. She's changing her hair to red for Suzerain, so there's definitely, she is able to do it. But yeah, that subtlety of she made a conscious effort to not change her hair, but he could still tell the difference. I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, it's a fun kind of way that works out, because when it says it, you're like, oh, that makes so much sense, because we spent so long establishing like what that heightened color sense does for you.
Yeah.
And then it makes an interesting combination with the hair thing that you probably don't see coming, but once it does, you're like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yep.
That's always nice. I like those. Okay, I guess let's get into these 6 chapters. We start out with Vivenna. She's just escaped our last set of chapters. She's wandering the streets trying to get away from Denth and Co. and thinking about Parlin is dead, and it's kind of her fault because she's the one who talked him into coming here. Denth and his team had betrayed her. No, they actually never worked for me. Looking back, I could see how they were manipulating me this entire time. It is so weird to discover. It's like, I've been a prisoner for months, and I didn't even know it. And I also she thinks Jules is working against her own gods. Like, what's betraying a friend compared to that? So true. Denth has been telling you for months how mercenaries are. It's not personal. Feels kind of personal, I'm just saying.
I do think it's like, what's betraying a friend? I'm like, Denth, and maybe Tonk, I can see you calling them friends up until this point. Jules was never your friend.
Oh, Jules never liked you at all. And actually, there's some interesting stuff in the annotations I didn't touch on, but in the early chapters with Denth and Tongfa, like when Jules isn't around, they're like, oh yeah, she'll show up or whatever. She was secretly following Vivenna around when she wasn't with the other two, so that they could keep an eye on her. So,
she wouldn't put together who it was.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And so so little tidbits. Let's see. And as she's walking through the slums, a guy that she saw earlier, or that was part of the crowd earlier, an Idrian, is like, hey, you've been causing quite a stir. Woman wandering the slums in a beautiful white dress, eyes dark, hair white and ragged. If everyone hadn't been so paranoid following the raid the other day, you'd have been seen 2 hours ago. And so he doesn't really care that she's the princess. He's like, that dress you're wearing would be worth a lot of money. Gimme. And he has a knife. And I like his allowance in the end is that because you're the princess, I won't turn you over to the people who are looking for you. But yeah, he wants that dress. He could feed his family for weeks on that, how much he could get for that cloth. Scream and I'll cut you. It's not a threat. It's just an inevitability. And then he wants the leggings, and then he wants her shift, which is the last thing that she has. And she's just like, starts screaming no. Like, you take your city, your colors and clothing, and go. And then she falls down and rubs mud all over. Take it if you want. Sell it like this. And he's just like, okay, I'm gonna go. You got some stuff going on. I'll just leave. So she just breaks down in the mud, in the trash, and crying. I don't blame her for it. It's been a tough day.
It's fucked.
And she finds a bit of cloth sticking out of the trash, and she uses it as a shawl. And she starts putting like mud and dirt in her hair to disguise who she is. And then realizes, oh wait, I still have like a crap ton of breath. Like everyone is going to notice. Like that's not, at this heightening, that is not something you can hide, especially from someone else who has a lot of breath, because they can tell. And she starts thinking about, like, Tongfa was hiding from me. I didn't feel him. Vasher was the same way in my room. I couldn't feel him. Oh, duh. You hide your breath in something. And so in order to disguise what's going on, she just says my breath to yours and puts her breath in her little shawl, all of it. So now no one will be able to tell who she is, but she's also a drab, and it's not super pleasant.
I'm carrying around my Horcrux here. Oh, wait.
Mm. And there's a bit of in the annotations here where he mentions like, so this sort of thing was possible from the beginning. If Denth had truly been on her side, he would have admitted that there is a way you can get rid of the breaths. What you would have to do is awaken something with a one breath command. There are some. They don't do much, but you can awaken like a tiny scrap of cloth with a simple command, and it would only take one breath. Then you put all your other breath into something. You take that one breath back, and you go and find a drab and give it away to them. And you just repeat the process until you've given away however much breath you want to give away. The point being, of course, that Denth didn't want that to happen. He was planning on getting a hold of those breaths at some point. But he wanted it to sound like an innocent mistake. Like, oh, he just didn't know enough about awakening, so that if Vivenna learned something later, then it wouldn't look suspicious.
Also just sounds like a total pain in the ass.
Well, yeah, given that she has like hundreds of them, that would. But I mean, that was what she wanted to do at first. She's like, I'm gonna go give them away one at a time.
Yeah, true.
And then we move on to Lightsong, who wakes up after having another but different kind of unpleasant dream, which he's like, no, it's not a prophecy. Not because I'm a god. It just, he'd been on the battlefield with no weapons, soldiers dying around him. And like he thinks the Idrians are the ones threatening us. They're the rebels who broke off. They need to be quelled. They deserve it. It's an interesting perspective. I don't think we've gotten something like that from him before. And he starts telling Larimar about his dream. He saw Blushweaver, her face red and flushed. I saw you were sleeping, and I saw the God King, and he was crying. So that's weird. And I also like that. I don't know that we had heard it before, but he says it's feast day. I'm going to get a breath today. So that's what he calls or maybe they call the day when he gets his breath every week. Or maybe it's just a day of the week, and it just happens to be the one where he gets. I don't know.
No, it's
feast day. Yeah, I think they established it. Yeah, they established that at the very beginning of the book.
Or did they call it that then too? I didn't remember.
Yeah.
Okay. And he orders some urns painted with the different colors of the gods. And when we come back, he's sitting out there throwing pebbles into the urns. And I like Larimar's like, well done, Your Grace, as he makes a shot. I wonder if he has to say something like that every time. Like, good job. You made another one.
So close, Your Grace. Missed by a whisker, Your Grace.
And then he misses one, and a servant has to run up and pick it up off the ground and put it in the right urn and run back.
Makes me think of like when you watch a professional tennis match and like the ball people are just like running back and forth really fast.
Yeah, that is how I picture it. Absolutely. And they're all like staying low. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Larimar's like, hey, I think Blushweaver's coming. He goes, Lightsong's like, good, I can show off my pebble throwing skills.
Yes, my girlfriend's here. Come, watch me throw a pebble.
And once again, she's just like, what are you doing? Why are you always being insane every time I see you? I do like his when she's like, what in the name of the iridescent tones are you doing? He's like, why don't they use our names as like curse words? Like for swearing? Like, we're gods. Shouldn't they be swearing by us?
Swear to me.
Can't remember what show or movie it was, but like there was some gods in it and something went wrong and they were all shocked and one of them went, oh my me.
And I like how she kind of just picks it up. It's like, what in the name of you are you doing? And she's upset about Allmother. Allmother won't even speak to me now, won't give me her commands.
I feel like Blushweaver's always upset about something though, you know? So it's like, how seriously do we need to take her?
Yeah, when she's upset, she just comes and vents to Lightsong because that's apparently his job. He's her venting post.
Not like he's doing anything else important.
Yeah. Also, I was reading a bit of Thor recently, and now I can't help thinking it's like All Mother is and All Father.
Yeah.
And so now it's like when he went to see All Mother, I'm just like, this is just Anthony Hopkins in a dress.
That would be a casting, all right. Now you got me picturing that. Why would you do that?
Because it's hilarious. Hey, if I have to live with it in my head, so do you.
Okay, fair enough.
And our listeners, take that, audience.
And so she's trying to get him.
Yeah, take that.
Lightsong's just like, stuff has been weird for me lately. And she sat quietly for a moment. You want to go back to my palace and frolic? That always makes me feel better. He's like,
you need a new stick, Blushweaver.
Yeah, right? And she says, what? I'm the goddess of lust, for your sake. I've got to fill the role. And he's like, no, you're the goddess of honesty. She's honesty and honest emotions, my dear. And lust is one of the most honest of all emotions. And she's like, okay, so what are you doing with the pebbles? And he explains that he's counting the priests as they come in, see how many priests for each god come into through the main entrance, the one entrance really of the court of the gods. And she's like, okay, but why? And so it turns out that while many of the gods have lots and lots of priests coming in, a few of them have kind of conspicuously fewer than the others. One of those being Mercy Star. And he knows that there's a tunnel under Mercy Star's palace. So he says that he thinks that this is an indication that some of the priests are going in and out through other means. They're going in and out secretly, and maybe there's something going on. And she's just like, oh, the tunnels again. Why are you so obsessed with that? And he's like, let me prove my point. And he pulls out a box, and she's like, a box? What a convincing argument. And then he reveals the squirrel inside. And she's like, a lifeless rodent. So much better.
Oh, what's in the box?
It's a lifeless squirrel. No big thing.
And he's like, do you know anything about breaking lifeless, my dear? And she just shrugs. He's like, yeah, I didn't either until I had my priest do this. It requires weeks to take control of a lifeless if you do not have the right security phrases. I'm not even sure how they do it. Something to do with breath and torture, apparently. And she's like, torture? The lifeless can't feel. And he's like, well, what can I tell you? They broke this one, and it was very difficult. And the stronger and more skilled an awakener, the awakener who creates the lifeless, the more difficult it is to break. And so she tries to redirect. She's like, see, yeah, this is why it's important that we get All Mother's lifeless on our side, because it would take years to break them if something happens. But here we find out the God King and some of his priests have the codes also, so it wouldn't be that big a deal. And she goes, oh, you think he's just going to give them to us? Which I'm like, well, wait, if you're going to war and one of them dies, why wouldn't he give them to you? What do you have going on, Blushweaver, that you're like, the God King wouldn't help me with what I want?
I feel like she really showed her hand there. It's like she's going to do whatever she wants to do, and that may involve the God King being overthrown as far as she's concerned.
Maybe. I could definitely see how someone would infer that for sure. And so he's trying to explain whoever made this lifeless was really, they had a lot of breath. They were really good at what they did. And they used this as just a distraction. That's not whoever it was trying to get into the tunnels. And they're not the same person who killed, which we already established that he thought there were two different people. And he's like, these tunnels would be the perfect place for someone to be setting up a clandestine operation. The court is outside the jurisdiction of the regular city guards. Each palace is like its own little autonomous country. So all you had to do is expand a few of these, and no one would ever know what you were doing down there. And then she points out, okay, but if it was that secret, then why would they be using the tunnels just to casually go in and out of the court day to day? Wouldn't that be suspicious? I mean, if you noticed it, how hard could it be to discover? And she's like, right, I forgot how useless I am, that I'm a complete idiot.
Yeah, ouch.
I mean, he took that a little far, but just answer one question for me. Why do I hate being a god? Why do I act so frivolous, undermine my own authority? She was like, I just assumed that you were amused by the contrast. He's like, no, I've been like this from the beginning. From the day that I woke up, I've refused to accept my place here. Something about the person that I used to be is trying to push through in like my attitudes, and I don't know what it is. But I get the feeling that person did not like secrets. And I'm just beginning to understand how many secrets there are in this court. And then he gets up and he's like, okay, excuse me, I got some business. And she says, what? And he says, to see All Mother. There are some lifeless commands that need to be dealt with. Which I don't think she was expecting that. He's like, oh, you're going to be helpful. All right, awesome. He's not planning to be helpful, really. But she doesn't know that.
I'm not a very good driver.
And then we're back to Vivenna. She sold her hair on the second day for a depressingly small amount of money. Not even enough food to refill her stomach, so she couldn't regrow her hair. She thought about selling her breath, but she didn't know where to do that. And besides, Denth would probably be watching the places where she might sell breath. But yeah, that's true. She doesn't want to draw attention to herself, so she's just out here begging. And she's not very good at it. And so as scared as she is of Denth or Vasher or whoever, she's like, that's not even my biggest concern. Eating, not starving, is my big concern now. Not being killed is later.
Yeah.
Like even the children are more capable of surviving on the street than she is. Like she got beat up by some urchins.
Experience of living on the street is probably very helpful in that situation.
Right. Yeah. And she decides she can't go to the authorities, which some of us were theorizing last time that she'd go to the palace and be like, hey, or the court and be like, hey, I'm the princess, the queen is my sister, I want to see her. She says, no. The rumors, she's been hearing the rumors that there's an Idrian princess causing trouble. And so she's like, they would arrest me instantly. She knows that her father has sent people looking for her, but she has no idea how to locate them. And besides, Denth has been killing them, so they might not even be around anymore. What did her father think? That's a good question. Like, all her father knows is that Vivenna's in Titalir, and everyone who he sends to find her doesn't come back or communicate back in any way. The city has soup kitchens, but the first one that she went to, she saw Tonk Fa watching for her across the street, or presumably watching for her. Probably not coincidentally sitting across the street from the soup kitchen.
I feel like that's the scariest part of all, that it was Tonk Fa, because like Denth wants her alive for his purposes. He wants the breath. Like Jules is cranky, but I don't know if she's like, I think she would do what Denth asks. Tonk Fa, he might just happily just kill her just for the fun of it. Like,
yeah, dude's a loose cannon.
Yup. I wonder how many soup kitchens there are. I feel like that I would keep trying them until I found one that it didn't look like somebody was watching me from. So just, if I was starving. But of course, we know that Denth has contracted out watching various places in the city, because he did it with where Lemex's old house. That's how I knew people kept showing up. So she probably wouldn't recognize most of them.
Yeah, maybe I would probably, in her situation, I'd probably try to make friends with one of the kid urchins and be like, hey, go get me some food from the soup kitchen, bro. But
maybe.
I don't know. Probably wouldn't work.
And she can't even try to leave the city because Denth probably has people watching the gates. And anyway, where would I go? I don't have supplies to try to get back to Idris. She's already losing weight and her stomach is growling. She tried picking out some rotting garbage from the gutters and managed to keep some of it down. That was the only thing she'd eaten in 2 days. And then the guards just like, no begging on this corner. Get out of here.
Get out of here, you.
She's like, they don't say where you can beg, but not here. All right, fine. She'd stopped worrying about the morality of stealing days ago. Even before, she'd never been so naive as to believe she wouldn't steal if she were denied food. But also, she's not good enough at stealing to try to steal.
It's just turned into the ultimate, let's take that silver spoon you were born with and beat the hell out of you with it.
Right? Yeah, I mean, she went really far, really fast. And it definitely makes you have second thoughts if you've been having some negative, like, Vivenna, she's so full of herself. Dak was just talking about it, I think. Like, I'm waiting for that moment when she finally stops being like, oh, man.
Yeah,
like,
but
I've been so wrong, and actually changes.
Yeah, but I didn't want it this bad.
Yeah, come on, Dak. At what cost? How could you do this to her?
What have I done?
It's all Dak's fault.
Can't believe you.
Dishonor on my family.
Yeah.
So she starts looking for a place to spend the night. She's already got her like a ranking of which alleys are the best to sleep in. One of them is full of the urchins. Those are the ones that like beat me up. They're above me in the pecking order. And then in her second favorite alley, or her favorite alleyway, sorry, there's a group of men with dark expressions doing something obviously illegal. So she's like, all right, I'll get out of there. But the third one was empty. Sorry, now I'm thinking of Holy Grail. It's like, but the third castle stayed up.
That's what you're going to get. The strongest castle in this here swamp.
Of all the swamp castles, this one was the strongest. But the oven gets stoked at night for baking, and you can stay warm by like keeping up against the wall. And that's the chapter. She falls asleep. So it's a chapter of how miserable and hungry she is until she finally falls asleep in her third favorite nasty alley.
It's just like the more you read, the worse it gets. Everything she says is like, oh, this alley is like nice and warm when they stoke the fire. How do you know that? Oh, it's awful.
Yeah. And then we get like the biggest kind of whiplash in tone here because we cut to Ciri, who's just sitting on the court green enjoying a meal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was like, oh, Brandon totally did that on purpose. This stark contrast. Not only
100%.
Not only is she sitting enjoying a nice meal, but she's now eating the way that Sussurran showed her, where she doesn't eat all of any dish and they just take it away. It's like, so she's eating so many different things and so much that she's not even finishing anything they're bringing her.
Yep. And I do also like that Ciri is also not a fan of seafood. She's like, and he's just, why is it all squirmy and tentacly and stuff?
But it's like, she's 100% doing Vivenna's bit here because she's also just like, man, I love this juice. And Vivenna was also all about the juice. So
It's true. Maybe that's telling us they're more similar than they think.
Yep.
Like in the annotations, Brandon's like, so clearly one of the stories I'm channeling with the Vivenna scenes is Les Miserables. Les Miserables. Les Mis. I'm going to go for that. It's one of my favorite stories of all time, so sometimes it's difficult not to find myself drawing upon Hugo's story and characters.
Fair. As much as it is like, man, 3 chapters of this is a lot, but I'm just like, you sort of need it just to get the passage of time. If she only did 1 chapter of being in the gutter and then Vasha found her, it wouldn't sink in quite as much how desperate and badly off she is. So, like, yeah, initially I read it, I'm just like, it seems like a bit filler, but then it's like, nah, you need it paced out like this. Otherwise, it's just like she was in the gutter for like a day.
Yeah, and he actually talks about that in here too. Like, he says that this chapter and the next Vivenna one were originally a single chapter, and he felt like as he was reviewing and drafting, he was like, it feels like I'm in a hurry to get on with Vivenna's viewpoints. I didn't want to spend too much time on the streets since I didn't want to retread ground I've seen in a bunch of other books. But he says the same thing that you did, where it's like, you need this. We needed more time with Vivenna on the streets. We needed to feel like she was earning the sections of time that she spent there. And so he has like this knee-jerk reaction to go against the normal fantasy tropes and things that you see. So he didn't want to do this too much. But then he's like, well, I can't make the story worse just because I don't want to do something that you've already seen.
Yeah.
And so he took the 1 chapter, cut it into 2, and then extended each section so that there's more stuff there. But yeah, so Ciri's out here having some seafood, trying out all these different dishes, not loving any of them except for, as you said, the fruit juice. And Trellides comes up and she's just like ignoring him while she eats. And she wishes that she could keep eating just so she had more of an excuse to ignore him. But then she's like, okay, fine.
And this is fun as well because like this is the first time she's ever gotten one over him, and it set the tone for the scene to follow.
Yep. And so Trellides says, I've heard that you haven't been doing your duty, basically. Although first he's like, hey, I need to speak to you. And she's like, yeah, I deduced that by the way you summoned me several times. And he says, yeah, you didn't come. She's like, it seems to me the consort of the God King should not make a habit of responding to demands and hopping to attend upon others wherever she's requested. And like, this dude's just like, you shouldn't antagonize me, your highness. She's like, I'm not antagonizing. I'm establishing rules that should have been understood from the beginning. And that's when she's like, he gets a smile on his face and she's like, what? Why that reaction? What is he? I'm losing control of this really quickly. And she starts putting it together pretty quickly because she's like, it's like he can see my emotions. What? Oh, my hair. Look at the aura around him. He's got a bunch of breath. And so she realizes, all my tutors have been telling me all that time I should have been controlling it like Vivenna can control her hair. And now I see that maybe they had a good point. So yes, he's like, I heard that you're not doing your duties. Are you pregnant? And she says, no. Then why have you stopped? What, are your spies disappointed to be missing their nightly show? And he kind of gets pissed off, where he's like, you Idrians living up in your lofty mountains, dirty, uncultured, but still assuming you're better than us. Like, geez, where did that come from, dude? How long have you been holding that inside? And she says, I know you've been listening to the God King's chamber. And he's like, well, not just listening. The first few nights, there was a spy in the chamber. And she's like, oh, holy crap.
Which we talked about that, didn't we?
Yeah, it wasn't mentioned in the book, but I
was.
told y'all from the annotations and stuff.
Yeah. And does he say first few nights or first few weeks?
He says first few nights in mine.
Yeah.
We found a difference before, so it's possible.
Yeah, okay. I think I read weeks and I was like, whoa.
That's a long time.
That's even worse than Brandon let on.
Yeah, we know. We always hang out for the first fortnight, just make sure things are going well.
And he says, he's like, you really, I know what does he say? The poisonous things your monks teach, the hatred into which you are indoctrinated. You think we're going to let an Idrian be alone with the God King unwatched? We had to make sure you weren't going to kill him. We're still not convinced. And I'm like, she's sitting here like, if Suspron's so important to you, why are you planning on killing him? But she can't say that. And what she does say is like, I've stopped because I knew it would get your attention. And he says, you have to produce an heir. And she's like, why are you so eager, Trellides? It's none of your business. It kind of is her business, to be fair. I mean, he says none of your concern, but it kind of is exactly her business.
You're not involved in that. I would say I'm pretty involved.
I have obligations you cannot comprehend. I am subject to the gods, and I do their will, not yours. And she's like, I mean, you can't kill me. Not if you want a royal heir. You can't bully me or force me. Only the God King could do that, and we know how he is. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Did you really think I could? You expect me to sleep with a guy and not find out that he has no tongue? That he's virtually a child? And then she throws in a little insult. Like, I doubt he can even go to the privy without help from his servants. And that, like, she sees that pisses Trellides off, and she says, "Huh? So he actually does care, or at least insulting the God King insults him. He's more devoted than I thought." Which that's an interesting little thing. We were kind of thinking that Trellides may have been manipulating a lot of this stuff, that the God King's priests were, basically had the God King enslaved and were ruling through him. But this guy seems to kind of care, to some extent at least.
It wasn't the response I was expecting.
To play devil's advocate, it could be that he cares. It could be that he's also just like I tried for fucking ages to teach him how to use a privy without help. You don't know what I went through.
Fair point. Yep.
Oh God.
Have you tried
how many
12
times? Do you know how many times I personally wiped his ass? Like, I'm the high priest.
So yes, we've got. And he gives us a little information. Like, do you know much about the history of our kingdom after your family departed? And she's just like, not really. She thinks like more than you probably think, but no, not really. I think that he probably expected you to cut. Like, Bluefingers keep saying like, we really thought that you'd be more prepared than this. And I feel like Trellides probably also thinks that expects her to be more prepared and know more about what she's getting into. So I don't know that more than you probably think is accurate, but whatever. Because nobody imagines the truth of the situation, that she was not prepared at all, and her dad just randomly decided to send her at the last minute.
No, because people don't do that.
No.
Except that guy.
Yes. Well, to be fair, also, her tutors apparently did try to prepare her. She just didn't listen.
Mm.
I mean, she had a valid reason. She spent her whole life going, well, I'm not the one going. The fuck do I care?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yep. Why would I learn my ninja rope breaking skills at this point? I'm not going to be a ninja.
And so he explains, Lord Peacegiver left us with a challenge. He gave us this treasure, a wealth of biochromatic breath, such as no one had ever seen, more than 50,000, and he told us to keep them safe. He warned us not to use them.
Where the fuck did he get that?
It's a good question.
He convinced a lot of people to give them to him, I guess.
I do not
nice
expect
orderly line, and give me your breath.
Could be.
Please, everybody, line up. Please. I'm going to tell you what to say to me. You're going to feel much better after this, I promise. All right, so you're going to say your breath or my breath to yours, whatever this freaking saying is, and you got to really mean it. All right, cool.
He says, what we did was necessary. I don't expect you to understand. And she says, necessary to keep a man in bondage, to deprive him of the ability to speak, to make a permanent child out of a grown man. He didn't even understand what he was supposed to do with a woman. And Trellides says, it was necessary. You Idrians, you don't even try to understand.
You don't even try to explain, dickhead.
He explained how it was necessary, but now it's necessary for him to have a child, but it was unnecessary for anyone to tell him what to do. I don't get it.
Yeah.
That's the part that gets me. I kind of understand about the removal of the tongue, because they're like, we promised not to use this breath and we're going to give it to him, and so we had to make sure he couldn't use it. That doesn't explain why you couldn't explain to him what sex is before sending him into a room to just like, you'll figure it out.
To go and have sex. Like, you've got to tell him something. He's got to have something to go off, because this is how we end up in the situation where he sits in the corner afraid of her.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thinking he just has to sit there and eventually she'll get pregnant.
Yeah, a child will appear. That's what happens in the stories.
And she's like, oh, he's because he insults her father. Like, I've dealt with your dad, and I've seen the same ignorant prejudice in him. And she's like, oh, he's baiting. He's trying to piss me off. I didn't even like my dad that much. It's fine. She doesn't think that, but she probably should. Let's be honest.
That's kind of a dick.
Believing in Auster instead of your living gods is not ignorance. You're the ones who abandoned our faith and took an easier path. And he's like, no, we followed the god who came to protect us when Auster did nothing. Peacegiver returned to life with a specific purpose to stop the conflict between men, to bring peace again. His name is holy. He's the one who gave us life. and he asked us one thing: to care for his power. He died to give it to us, but demanded that it be held in case he should return again and need it. Like, return again with the capital R. So in case he comes back to life again.
That's a wrinkle.
We could not let the... Yeah, right? Yeah, he's just going to show up? Does he show up in somebody else's body, or is his old body going to pop back up?
Waiting for the second coming of Peacegiver. We call him Peacetaker.
Yeah. Peacegiver, a.k.a. Claude. That'd be a trick.
Claude the God, let's go.
Peacegiver Judgment Day.
Peacegiver, I really did it this time.
He's like, we couldn't let the power be profaned, not even by our God King. And so she wants to ask, like, how do you pass it on to somebody else? But that would be giving away too much. And like Trellides is like, I get it now why your dad sent you instead of the other one. We should have studied them all. You're more capable than we had been led to believe. It's like, no, she's not. I mean, she's getting there.
But as long as they believe that she is.
Yeah.
So what are your demands? What will it take to get you to go back to your duties? And she says, I want my serving women replaced with women from Pancall. And he's like, what, you're displeased with your serving women? Like, no, not really. I have more in common with the Pancall women. I like the browns they wear. And he's like, oh, yeah, thinking that it's like an Idrian prejudice thing against colors. And she's like, I don't want to get rid of the Landron women. They can continue to serve like the Pancall women did before, but I want my main women to be from Pancall. And he's just like, all right, fine. And she goes, okay, that'll earn you a few more weeks. And so she's just like, I got a victory, but at the cost of antagonizing him even further. He probably was never going to like me anyway, so it's fine.
I like how that's her concern. Like, he was probably never going to like me anyway. Like, wait, did you think he was gonna?
Well, no,
at any point?
She's just like, I kind of made more of an enemy out of him, but he was never going to be something other than an enemy, so it's probably fine.
I mean, there are a few times in this conversation where he didn't refer to her as Vessel. He actually called her Your Highness or something like that. So I'm just
That's true.
Well, maybe he does have a bit of respect. Like, you know, he still hates her, but there's some respect.
You got to take what you can get, yeah. And then she goes back to eating the food, and it's like, all right. And we cut back to Vivenna for another sad section. She has one bit. We don't know how much money that is. Apparently not much. And she's trying to pay this guy for the privilege of rooting through fresh garbage from 2 restaurants to get food. And he's like, I find it hard to believe, Lady Girly, that this is all you made today. Even the children can bring me at least 2. And she's like, I haven't eaten in days. And he said, then do better tomorrow. Not only that, he keeps her coin.
Just rude.
Yeah. And so he says, 2 tomorrow. I have to pay the restaurant owners, can't let you eat for free. So he pays for the privilege of being the lord of this alley and getting paid by the poor people to dig through the garbage.
King of the restaurant garbage.
Yeah.
He's folded like this napkin into a crown.
A lobster crown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's just like, last time she'd brought 1 bit and it had let her eat her fill. It's the last time that she'd eaten, like a week ago. How long had she been on the streets? She didn't even know. And she's having trouble remembering things. Like, she's like, her brain is fuzzy, clearly. And maybe it's a little hard to pick up on at first, but as we continue through the chapter, it becomes clear that like her thinking is really fuzzy from malnutrition or what we don't know, but she's been feeling really sick lately. Sick enough she didn't even think she could feel the hunger anymore. That's pretty sick. And so in the annotations here, he says, one of the things I did to make Vivenna's sections here work better was enhancing the fuzziness of her mind, giving her this sense of numbness that I hope indicates that something is not right with her. It's common for someone who suddenly becomes a drab to get sick almost immediately. For a time, her immune system was magically enhanced and warded in a way to keep her from becoming ill. With that removed, suddenly sickness can strike. She hasn't built up an immunity to the sicknesses going around, and by becoming a drab, her immune system suddenly works far worse than that of other people. These things combine to make her come down with something pretty nasty the very day she put away her breath. This would have killed her eventually. By sending men to find her, Dent actually saves her life here. So that's nice. And she makes her way back to the slum and watches the prostitutes and thinks like, they're not dirty. They don't look hungry. They're laughing. I could go and join them. An urchin had spoken about it the other day.
That's how they get you.
Mm-hmm. It was so tempting. Food, warmth, a dry bed. And then she's like, what am I thinking? What is wrong with my brain? And eventually she forces herself away. She's like, not yet. I'm not that far gone yet.
You're just trying to survive, love. Don't be too hard on yourself.
Right? Everyone's doing what they have to do to survive. She gets back to the alleyway that she's going to, and it's empty. It's actually kind of too empty, but she doesn't notice at first, and then some shadows darken the alleyway behind her, and she's like, oh, crap. And she tries to run, but there's somebody cutting off the other side, and it's the guy who stole her dress. Sorry, Princess, bounty just got too high. Took me a blasted long enough to find you, though. You did a great job of hiding, he says. How very encouraging of you, thanks. And at this point, she's just like, fine, I can't take this anymore. Just take me. Whatever happens, it's got to be better than this. And then all of a sudden, something hits the street in front of them as they're leading her away. A black sword, the weapon, silver sheath and all, rammed into the dirt.
I love that. That was one of those, those moments in the movies where, I think Spider-Man: Homecoming, where like he goes up to the door of his girlfriend's place and rings the doorbell, and the door opens and the Vulture is standing behind the door, and it's just like a, oh fuck moment. It's like that's what this was. Not for us, not for Venom, but for the thugs. Like I'm just like, oh man, you guys are fucked.
Yeah, it doesn't look good for them, right? Like instantly, you know that shit's gone. Yeah, no, I agree. And so they're all kind of transfixed by the sword until one of them reaches for it and picks it up, and everyone's looking at it. And another guy like reaches out to touch it, and the guy carrying the sword just bashes him in the face with the sword, sheath and all. And then the scramble starts. Bones broke, blood ran on the cobblestones. Eventually, one of the guy with the sword kills the last other guy. The clothing of the sword wielder's arm had disintegrated, and a blackness like vines growing on a wall had twisted up around his shoulder. Black pulsing veins that bulged out of the skin. The man screamed a piercing, desperate cry. So yeah, that's nice.
That's what you wanted, right?
Twisted the sword around and rammed it, sheath and all, through his chest. And then he slumps over, backward, twitching, staring up at the air as the black veins evaporate. The sword going all the way through, coming out his back and propping him up from behind. So that's a very dramatic image. And Brandon says in the annotations that like my editor tried to take out the shot of the final man slumping back but remaining kneeling, staring at the sky with Nightblood rammed through his chest, propping him up from behind. But I think it's one of the more powerful ones in the book, so I fought for it.
Yeah,
I was gonna say I'm glad that stayed. Actually, that you kind of needed that.
Mm-hmm.
And then
well, I wonder why you wanted to get rid of such a graphic image.
Well, and that's the next note is like he didn't. It wasn't that like he thought it was too graphic or something. He just didn't think it was realistic that a body would remain kneeling like that.
You know what sort of book we're reading, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that's not exactly realistic.
Also, I mean, come on, editor, have you ever shoved a sword through somebody? You don't know.
Yeah, go out and test it, and then come back.
Yeah.
Maybe they have. Maybe they know from experience.
No, could be.
It's like the Christopher Lee and Peter Jackson moment. Now, Peter, do you know what a man sounds like when he gets stabbed in the back? Because I do, and that's not the sound he makes. Okay, Christopher, you do your thing.
Right. We're not going to argue
Acknowledged.
about
Moving on.
No more information needed.
All right, then. Maybe his editors.
Why?
Maybe his editor is one of those guys like that goes on Weapon Masters and they cut through like pig torsos and stuff.
But yes, so Vivenna is just staring like this whole time, and it like is left alone on the street littered with corpses, and then lowering from two twisted lengths of animated rope comes Vasher. He pulls the sword out, and Vivenna's just staring like, okay. And he says she didn't even flinch as Vasher picked her up and slung her over his shoulder. And that's the last we see of Vivenna this time. Vasher saves the day? Maybe? We don't know what he's going to do next.
Nightblood saved the day, let's be real.
When we last saw Vasher, he told her if she ran away, he was going to kill her. So, is he good to his word? He probably wouldn't pick her up if he was planning on killing her, right? Like, he'd just do it.
Yeah, he'd just do it right there. You know, no fuss, no muss.
I feel like circumstances have changed a little bit since then.
Also,
that's fair.
It is interesting that, like, old mate who picked up the sword slaughtered every one of his mates and completely ignored her.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, she didn't get killed in the fight. what does that say about her? And maybe Vash has just gone, all right, better not waste this.
Could be. That's a really good point. Chapter 42. We're back to Lightsong. And a priestess is saying her grace is not interested in seeing you. And Lightsong's response, well, I'm not interested in her uninterest. Perhaps you should ask her again.
Such a schoolyard thing.
I've already asked 14 times. Goddess Allmother is growing impatient with your requests and instructed me not to respond to them anymore. Did you give the same command to the other priestesses? And she's like, no. Wonderful. Send for one of them. And like she comes back and she's like, okay, now. She said that we're not allowed to do any of the stuff that you're asking. No priestess is allowed to ask her if you can come and see her. Did she say that they couldn't ask if she would come out here? Yes. And every other phrasing that would imply asking her to come within your proximity or communicate by letter.
All variations of what you might want.
It was great. And I like in between, Larimar's like, what about your speech to Blushweaver about not annoying people as much? He's like, I didn't say that. I simply said that I was coming to recognize within myself more the person I used to be. That doesn't mean I'm going to discard all the progress I've made. The annoying is progress. Come on. And I like your sense of self-awareness is remarkable, Your Grace. And so after Allmother has made sure none of her priests can ask her any of these things, he's like, she's getting better at this. I guess there's nothing to be done. Scoot, set up my pavilion. I'm going to sleep here tonight. And it's not the priestess. It's Larimar who's like, you're going to do what?
Yeah. He's like, wait, what?
I did not agree to
Even
this.
for you. Yeah. He's like, I kind of want to go home, Your Grace. Nah. Set it up.
Apparently he's been trying to see her for over a week. And so he's like, okay, if she's going to be that stubborn, I can be stubborn too. I'm quite practiced. Comes from being an insufferable buffoon and all. I don't suppose she forbade you from allowing squirrels into the building. Which is such a question.
The priestess is just like
specific.
Oh, gosh.
She'd just be like I don't like where this is going.
No, right. There's nothing good about that.
No, I guess she did. Excellent. Okay.
And so he pulls out the squirrel and gives it a command. Go into the building, search out the returned who lives in it, run around in circles, squeaking as loudly as you can. Don't let anyone catch you. Oh, and destroy as much furniture as you can.
Okay, bye.
And then it runs off screeching, and the priestesses are like, oh, like it says she's horrified by what has just happened.
I also
Go get him,
like
Binky.
how it mentions, yeah, I like how it mentions, it's like, yeah, it screeched. It didn't really sound like a squirrel, though. So just imagine it's just being like,
Lights on,
Do the
just
screaming
like,
goat thing.
what a delightful afternoon it's becoming. And
Maybe we
Larimar,
should get out more often.
yeah, we need to do this more. Get some more squirrels. This is great. And Larimar's like, it's not going to be able to follow all those orders. It still has the mind of a squirrel, despite the power that gives it breath, or that lets it obey the commands. And Lightsong's like, whatever. Like, it'll do something, right? So
This is just one of those scenes where he's just going to be lounging on one of those couches, and like in the background you just see all the lights in the palace come on. The Benny Hill theme starts playing, and you hear all these crashes and screams and shouts coming from inside, while he's just in the foreground having some grapes or something.
that would absolutely be amazing.
Yeah,
I like this picture. It says it's several hours later. He's out here on her lawn with a group of musicians playing for him. When the a frazzled looking priestess comes out and says, her grace will see you. He's like, huh? Oh, that. Do I have to go now? Can I finish the song? Okay, whatever. Allmother is in her audience chamber. And Lightsong thinks about how he hasn't been here since Calmseer, the night before she gave up her breath. And he watches as someone makes a request. One of the petitions that we've seen before for the Allmother to give up her breath. And he says that his children are starving, and he can't afford food, and he can't find any work because of an accident that messed up his leg. He took a job he came down from the Highlands a few years back, and Brandon has in the annotations, yes, this is an Idrian. Some of them do come and see the gods, maybe even convert when they get desperate enough. And so, he took what sounds like a dangerous job, a storm runner, one of the ships that goes out during the tempest to catch fish while the other ships are still in the harbor. And so he wants her to cure his leg so that he can go and get work and feed his children. I wouldn't have come to you, but with my wife sick and my daughter crying with such hunger. And she's like, you know what? It's not as bad as you think it is. Talk to my high priest. There's a guy on the docks who owes me allegiance. You have 2 good hands. You'll be put to work sewing nets, and we'll send enough food with you to care for your family while you learn your new trade.
Oh, finally a god that, does something.
Yeah. This seems like the kind of thing that other people could be doing, trying to actually help people.
Yeah, it's like she's using her influence as a god with the common man to be like, here, this guy came to me and petitioned me to help him. I want to help him since you are loyal to me. Put this guy to work. It's like, yeah, that seems like a pretty easy, normal way to transact in this instance.
Yeah. I feel like Teenage God might also be doing the same. We just didn't get to see him doing things. He seemed pretty switched on as well. But yeah, it's like finally we got some gods who aren't just callous dicks.
That is a refreshing change, yeah.
Yeah.
He has a note in here. This guy's not the only Idrian to have converted. A lot of them have, in fact. When confronted by gods, you can visit and see. The other Idrians call them scrapes, an epithet that refers to a scratch on a person's arm revealing the colorful blood underneath.
It's kind of cool. I like that.
Right? Fun little bit of world building. Also, he says once all of the gods and goddesses did what Allmother is doing now. If someone came to them with a petition, they tried their best to find a way to help them without giving up their breath. The modern gods consider this far too much trouble, and it has fallen out of practice. Everyone says the gods of this day are weaker than the previous ones. They're right, though weaker isn't the right word. They're just not as high quality a group of people, partially because of the traditions and expectations that have developed. So that's nice.
So yeah, assholes.
And so now Allmother confronts Lightsong with a small bundle of fur tied tightly with rope. They didn't put it in a cage. They tied it up. This is yours, I'm told. Ah, yes. Terribly sorry. Kind of got away from me. With an accidental command to find me and run around in circles screaming. And I love Lightsong's like, that worked? My high priest didn't think the squirrel's brain would be capable of following such complicated commands. Oh, I mean, whoops. It completely misunderstood me. Stupid squirrel. My deepest apologies. And she, while I think that she's depicted as looking as being very not caring and stuff in that first part of the scene, she's like, when she gets them alone, she sounds a little bit more cutthroat, where she's like, do you really intend to destroy the only authority we have left? Like, we need these people to give us breath so we don't die. Have you considered what your lack of decorum and flippancy and your flippancy might cost us all? And she explains, like, once the return didn't just listen and say yes or no, they would try to help people. And Lightsong goes, well, that seems like a lot of trouble. And she says, we're their gods. Should a little bit of trouble deter us? Oh, of course, we wouldn't want to let something as simple as the pains of our people interfere with our leisure time. Why am I even talking to you? And I don't know that anyone was expecting him to be like, I came to give you my lifeless commands. Was that a surprise for everyone? Yeah.
Didn't see it going that way, no.
Yeah, I honestly didn't know why he was going to see her, because I did not think he was going to going there specifically to convince her to give up hers, because it doesn't seem like the kind of thing that he would want to do. So I was pretty shocked. No,
yeah, I like that point though. It was like, yeah, why are you going to see her? Because it doesn't seem like him. But yeah, he says Blushweaver has control of half of the army basically. So if I give you my half, then you can counter her.
He's just trying to make sure that no one has controlling interest.
Yes, and so, fair. But he doesn't want to be the one who has to counter her. He doesn't want to have to fight and argue with her. He's going to let somebody else do that. And Allmother says, calm seer trusted you. And Lightsong says, yeah, her one flaw, I must profess. Even goddesses have them, or so it seems. And Allmother says she was the best of us. She'd meet with people all day. They loved her. And so he gives her his security phrase, bottom line blue. I'll tell Blushweaver you bullied me into giving it to you. She'll be angry at me, of course, but it won't be the first time. And she's like, no. I'm not letting you get off this easy. You were chosen for this place. I'm not letting you just get out of your responsibility. You're going to have to act
He's
like a
damn
god.
It. Yeah, damn it. She saw through my ruse of not doing any work.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, yeah, well, I gave you my commands. Do you do what you want? So he's like, I don't have to have any responsibility. It's all on her now. And then she says, verdant bells. That's mine. Now we both know both of them.
What do I look like? A guy who isn't lazy?
You are lazy, though, right? Don't get me started.
Don't get me started.
Oh, gosh.
That's a good one.
And he's like, I have to ask you, Allmother, and please don't think me rude, but what in the name of colors is wrong with you? And she says, I dreamed that you would come. I saw it in the pictures a week ago. All week I've seen patterns of circles in the paintings, all red and gold, your colors. And he says, coincidence. And she snorts, like, someday you'll have to get over your foolish selfishness. This isn't just about us. I've decided to start doing a better job of things. Maybe you should take a look at what you're doing. And he's like, no, you're assuming that I've never tried to be something other than what I am. But when I try, a disaster is the result. And she said, well, I mean, you got my commands now, for better or worse. I, for one, am curious to see how you handle them. And that's the end. And there's one other bit in the annotations that I wanted to pull out, because Brandon says, he says, the prophetic dreams really came to my rescue a couple times in this book. I know that they're cheating slightly, but since I've built them into the story, I might as well use them. Having dreamed of his arrival gets me out of having to explain why she'd do something crazy, like give him her commands. So I like the way that comes across, where it's just like, man, it was so lucky that I had these dreams to fall back on there.
He's like, it's a good thing I wrote this in, because now I can write this in. So
Okay, so yes, that's our chapters. Before we move into predicaments, we're gonna try this out, because I told you guys before, people had suggested we do like a word of Brandon of the week, and somebody from the Discord even sent in a big long list of ones that they thought might be interesting. So I think we're gonna try it a little bit. I don't know if this is even the right place for it. Maybe I'll put it after predicaments next week, but I think for this week's it'll fit. So I'm gonna read one, and we can, if anything strikes you about it, we can discuss it, or if not, we can move on. But this one's also a very short one. It's not one of the ones that got sent, at least I don't think it is. This is one that occurred to me that I went out and found. So this is from the Oathbringer release party in 2017. Very short question and answer. The questioner says, what metal is Nightblood's sheath made out of? And Brandon says, Nightblood's sheath is aluminum.
Ooh.
So.
Okay.
We know what aluminum does in Allomancy.
Yeah, well, what do you want? You want our opinion on this, or what?
If you have any thoughts, feel free. If not, we can just move on. But it's an interesting note, I think.
Aluminium is the magic canceling metal.
It certainly seems that way in between Allomancy and the fact that it's containing whatever is going on with Nightblood.
I mean, it is containing it, but then if he just slightly unsheathes it, then it becomes like a part of it, right? Because we just saw it go through a man with the magical force of Nightblood, sheath and all. So it's like, what exactly is containing it? I don't know.
I think it's just like part of Nightblood's blade, whatever that's made of, gets exposed. So then Nightblood can act with a bit more of his own autonomy, but he still can't get himself out of the sheath. So he's like, well, I can't stab you because I can't take the sheath off, so I'm going to stab you with the sheath.
Interesting. Or maybe this is just something I'm pulling completely out of my behind here. Maybe when Nightblood is unsheathed, he reverses the effects of allomantic metals. So, well, no, because that's an alloy. Duralumin's an alloy.
Yeah.
I was gonna say maybe somehow he turns the aluminum sheath into like a super power charger, but that doesn't really make sense.
I guess my first thought was just mostly that if you were world hopping and you were on Scadrial, then having it in aluminium would mean that they couldn't affect it.
That's true. Yeah, they can't like push or pull or anything on it. That's a good point.
Or a practicality rather than a hard system, maybe.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Jamie. So it's if Vasher went to Scadrial with Nightblood, nobody could push or pull on it while it's in its sheath. That makes sense. Yeah, that's good. That's a good thought.
Or someone might even be worried about a Mistborn popping up on this planet and be like, I've got my anti-Mistborn sword.
Yeah, I guess that's true, because I guess the planet doesn't necessarily give the Mistborn their power. It's the ability to burn allomantic metals.
Yeah, it's genetic. Although I don't know that we've seen one try to use their power elsewhere. Maybe it wouldn't work. Right. That's a good point. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a genetic investiture that does have to do with lineage, but not so specific lineage that it has to be an heir like the royal locks.
Yeah, not like that.
Yeah, that I'm so confused about that. I'm just like, what?
I know, right? Okay. Well, yeah, that was one little one. Like I said, somebody sent a whole bunch, so we'll do this for at least a few weeks. And if you guys are enjoying random facts that we can pop in, then maybe we'll keep doing it. I kind of like the concept. I also don't want it to draw like. I'm worried about adding stuff since our episodes already go a little longer than I want some of the time. So I'm like, how much do we want to add? But we'll see. Predicaments. Let's do that. Where are we going? What's going to happen now? Vivenna is in the hands of Vasher. Lightsong and Allmother both have the commands for half of the army. There's all sorts of things happening.
Yeah. So I'm going to go. I'm going to kind of tag on to some stuff that Dak and Jamie have said, that Vivenna is going to become one of the main players in this book at the end. I don't know how big her role is going to be, but obviously she's one of the main voices we've been following throughout the book. So surely her contribution to the events will be significant. How I think that's going to play out now that Vasher has her, and it's been enough time that he realizes she isn't with Denth. Maybe he'll be more willing to kind of be like, hey, look, this is maybe not who I am, but this is what I'm about. And so, this is what I'm working towards. What you've been doing has been helping Denth do X, Y, Z, and this is what we really should be doing. And so, she's going to start to trust him, and then things are going to kind of change directions for her with Vasher. Maybe obviously he's a great awakener, so he'll teach her how to awaken stuff, hopefully. And then we'll have that. So that's that portion. The Lightsong stuff, now that the power has kind of been divided equally, although you could say Lightsong and Blushweaver technically have all the power, I doubt Lightsong would use the power in a way that he would see as unfit or a bad choice, although we know historically he may not have made the best choices. And will he actually be able to perceive what is the right choice? Who knows? But now that the power's kind of been divided a little more evenly, I would guess that if things do come to a head, that there'll be two equally opposing sides as to one that's overwhelming another. Hopefully that'll be the case. And then, I'm really not sure where the Ciri Susebron stuff's going to go. My assumption is that they're going to have to try to work together to fix something. If what Dak had theorized is correct, and this is the Pan-Call people and Bluefingers that are actually the dangerous ones in the situation, I assume if that is the case, that there'll be a double cross at some point, and then a lot of things are probably going to be happening quickly. The same, once that betrayal hits, the Sanderlanche will probably be in full swing, and there's going to be a lot of falling action. How that's going to take shape, though, I really don't know, because Ciri seems, although confident in not even completely confident in the action she's taking, but although appearing confident on the outside, it still feels like there's so little information for her to go on to make decisions that I just don't know exactly what direction it's going to head in.
Okay. Yeah. One of the things you said that I kind of latched onto was about what Vasher might tell her now, and it kind of occurred to me that Vivenna spent months with Denth and Co, but Vasher might actually know more about what they're doing than she does, which would be bizarre.
Yeah, it's true.
And so she might find out some interesting things. Like, what are they doing? Okay, sorry, that was my brain.
Not entirely certain where we're going from here. I do feel I do agree. I think Vasher is going to explain to Vivenna what Denth has actually been up to and pull the curtain back on a lot of what's just been going on, what she's really been doing, and then they'll start conspiring to make plans to undo that or hinder it or something. But whether or not they'll have enough time to do it subterfuge way, or they'll have to go out and do one big job to try and stop it all. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I do think, because I remember I predicted that Vivenna would wind up becoming the new Returned in Warbreaker, holding the black sword. I mean, now that she's with Vasher, if he keeps her around, she's in a perfect position to take that. And that's me thinking, what happens to Vasher? Is Vasher going to make it out of this alive? Maybe not. Maybe he's going to die, and Vivenna takes up the sword. I think there will be a confrontation between Denth and Vasher at some point. That it's too personal for the both of them to get it to not. So maybe Denth will wind up killing Vasher because he's not a great swordsman, and Denth seems to understand a bit about Nightblood that he isn't quite letting on, because he said oh no, I'm not going anywhere near that thing. So maybe whatever it is that compels people to take up Nightblood, Denth is wise to it and won't be tempted by it. So Vasher might throw Nightblood out there. Vasher picks it up and doesn't draw it, and then tosses it away. So then he gets the better of Vasher that way. Yeah, so we'll see with that. And yeah, the Ciri and Susebron, I do think that getting all the Pan Carl into people into being her main servants is a mistake, because I don't know, man. I'm still just on the blue fingers. I don't trust you, buddy. So yeah, it's playing into his hands, and yeah, it's going to end really poorly for everyone except Bluefingers there.
Well, yeah, and I didn't really touch on it, but the reason she gives the reader for wanting to switch to the Pan Call women is like, if things go badly, and Bluefingers has agreed to sneak them out, and so this will be a way to facilitate that. And so yeah, if you're right, then you've just facilitated him getting his way instead, which is not good for you.
Yeah,
theoretically. Yeah, I like this idea about it feels like we should get a Denth Vasher fight at some point, right? Like, feel kind of gypped if we didn't see the two of them go up against each other at some point in the book. But we certainly wouldn't expect to have Vasher be the one who comes out dead from that, so that would be interesting. Okay. Things to think about. Dak, you were the first one to come up with it, but I think Jamie was kind of on board with Bluefingers from the beginning. She's like, yeah, that sounds like good. And I think you've gotten Joe on board as well. So you're winning people over to your theory, for better or worse at this point.
Yay.
Okay, so yes, I think I'm still on the Bluefingers is the bad guy bandwagon. I think the confrontation that we just had between Theory and Trellides, I'm just not like I said, I don't think he's a good character. I don't think he's a good person, but I don't think he's the big bad. He does seem, and from a very short conversation, he actually does seem to have the God King's interest, or like things are the way they are because they need to be. Like, he seems to be quite a devout person. Mm-hmm. So I don't think he's the one we need to be looking out for. And just how easily and how quickly Ceres managed to get the Pan Carl women in place, it just doesn't feel right to me. So I think Dak's completely right. Bluefingers is the guy we're gonna have to watch out for. And I think having now Ceres just invited in these spies, into her inner circle, I don't think that's going to be a good thing. Fortunately, Theory's still pretty guarded, but I don't think that's going to be good. I do think we'll get. I'm hoping what we get now is the training montage between Vasher and Vivenna to get her upskilled with her awakening. As much as she doesn't want to, I think that's kind of where we're headed next. I do still think. I think it was Dak again. I think Dak's kind of on the ball this book, but I do think Vivenna will be Warbreaker. If that's the name of her return and coming back, I just think she's very logically placed now to take on that sword. And we already know that she doesn't fall to that sword the way that others do. Mm-hmm. Now that we've seen what it actually does to people, she doesn't feel the same way when she's confronted with Nightblood. So I think that we're there. I don't really have anything extra apart from really just confirming really what other people have said. I think that Dak and Joe have really been on it today. Yeah, still long term. We always get to this point in the book and I'm like, I actually have no idea which way this is going to go. No idea whatsoever. I wanted to think a little bit more about the dreams and in the prophecies. I reckon we did talk about before other gods having them. I would assume so. I imagine there's a scribe effectively for each one of them having to do that. I just assumed it was part of the process. What they were dreaming about, I don't really know. But I think we know he's been dreaming of war, but the whole thing about the God King crying, maybe something bad's going to happen to Ciri. He does seem to really care for her. And given the situation she's just found herself in, if Bluefingers is bad and now all of his people are around her, then maybe she's going to end up in a situation that's not particularly nice. Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of as to why he'd be crying at the moment. But yeah, we'll see how we go. I reckon his observations of Mercy Star's palace, we've got to figure out what's going on there. I reckon he'll find the tunnels because he'll prove that people are getting in and out. He already knows the tunnels exist.
Right.
So I think he's going to work through that. I don't know. The next step in his investigation would be to see where people are outside the city, but how is he going to get outside the city? He's going to need some people, I imagine. Don't know how we're going to get there yet, but he'll figure it out. Maybe Lightsong will end up outside the city.
Ooh, a god wandering around.
He would be noticeable.
Yeah,
it would be noticeable, sure. But maybe. You never know. at night. Could happen.
There were a couple of things. First off, I think you make an interesting point about, because we talked previously about Warbreaker, if that was going to be the name of return, maybe it being Vivenna, but combined with what Dak was thinking, like there's two interesting possibilities I think there, because one is Dak was like, Vasher and Denth would have a fight and maybe Vasher would get killed. What if it was Vivenna and Denth that fought, and then that's how Vivenna dies and becomes Warbreaker? Or other way around, what if Dak at least has been theorizing from the beginning that Vasher might be returned. I think since we met Vasher, essentially. But what if he did die and then he's the one who returned and ended up being Warbreaker?
I don't think that's going to be the case because of the painting.
Oh, it was a woman holding
woman.
the sword. That's a good point. Yep.
Who'd you say die and become Warbreaker?
Well, I was saying
Vasher.
that it could be Vasher or Vivenna was the other.
Oh. I still maintain my original theory that could have been Vasher in the painting, because the only reason he says that it's a woman is because of a long hair, and Vasher has long hair, so
that's true. I forgot that you'd mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't necessarily believe that it has to be a woman in the painting.
Okay. The other thing that stuck out to me was going back to the prophetic dreams. Like, you got a good point. It probably is every god like wakes up in the morning and the priests are writing down their dreams, right? So is there a central repository where they're collecting all these? Is somebody out there reading them and trying to interpret what's going to happen from those? Because that seems like the kind of thing that somebody should be talking about.
Yeah, well, how much of it is kept within your own palace? Because they all kind of worship a god, right? Like, they're all the god kings, but you would appeal to a particular god for something. So do people worship all of the gods because they're all kind of under the god king, or do they pick one?
That's an interesting
Go
point.
from there. Is it actually of interest to them to have cross-referred their dreams? I mean, it would make sense, but whether they've thought about it, I don't really know. Because if they all start dreaming of war and all have the same dreams, surely someone would have caught wind by now.
You would think, right? Maybe it's one of those things like the CIA and the FBI not sharing intelligence and then something bad happens.
Potentially.
Okay, interesting. All right. Sorry, got me thinking down some roads there. Okay, speaking of what's going to happen next time, we're doing 5 chapters next time. That's 43, 44, 45, 46, and 47. And with 45 being the extremely short one that I mentioned previously. So anyone following along, read those for next time. We have a few things to touch on. I'm going to do, so that I don't forget it, somebody sent us a message on Discord that I wanted to read here. So this is from Timothy CD, who says, I want to send a big shout out to the creators of this amazing podcast. I've been having a blast because I can read something cool and then listen to other people having a lively discussion about it. It's like getting 2 awesome experiences in one, reading and chatting. So much fun. Thank you, Timothy. Glad that you're enjoying yourself. We have.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I don't know, and we may have talked about this a long time ago on the podcast. I don't know what Data's original intention for the podcast was, but that's how I'd always kind of thought of it. It's like people out there that, like me, had never read this stuff, and it's like they have a place that they can come and listen to people doing the same thing and kind of follow along if they want. If they don't want to, they can read ahead or whatever. But if they like have more thoughts on it, it's like maybe they can get some extra discussion out of it just from hearing us talk about it. So that's cool that people are doing that.
It's been so long now. I don't remember all of my original intentions. I don't know that was central one.
Yeah, it's been like 3.5 years.
And we're finally about to start Stormlight after we've which everyone has been begging for this entire time.
Right.
We got 4 episodes after this one, people, and then we're starting it. Unless something happens between now and then to be like, hey, let's go read a different book, and everyone would hate me.
Oh wow.
Probably.
Yeah, that'd be wild.
And a surprise twist. We're doing Tress.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Secret Project 4 is coming out at the beginning of October.
I was about to say, yeah, that 4th quarter book comes out and all hell could break loose. We don't know.
I think we should be done with this before the beginning of October, though. So we'll have already started in.
Yep.
I'm gonna stop us after like 3 episodes into The Way of Kings. And be like, now we gotta read this other book. That would be mean for everybody. No. Okay. I think honestly, My idea was, because I'd listened to other podcasts that did this for the Dresden Files specifically, is what I'm thinking of, where it was just like, it's almost like getting to read these books again, hearing someone else read them for the first time. It's almost like getting to read them for the first time again. And so I like giving that experience to people who maybe like me have reread these books a dozen times, but you get something new out of it by hearing someone else do it for the first time. Anyway, so yeah, moving on. We have one new 5-star review from Bane45. I'm not going to read it in a Bane voice because that's Dak and Joe's thing. I can't do it.
Bane.
It says, this is Bane's new favorite podcast. It says, my new favorite podcast. This podcast
Did he say that? Did he say it in the third person?
No, it's
This is Bane's new favorite podcast.
What have I
You
started?
podcast as if you have nothing to lose. It's admirable.
It says, this podcast is an excellent way to experience going through the Cosmere, both for first-time readers and for people wanting to recapture the feeling of going through for the first time. Data, the only member to have read Sanderson's works previously, is great at nudging conversation about what might happen without spoiling things for the others. The rest of the cast has a lot of interesting insights and clearly has a lot of fun talking about their favorite parts of each chapter and trying to figure out what will happen next. I fully recommend giving them a try.
Oh man, Bane, what a sweet review. For that sweet review, I'm gonna give you the sweet power of sliding.
Ooh, that is a good
You
one.
make them speed bubbles, bro.
I thought you were going to go full Bane with it and be like, Bane is a lot like a pewter learning person.
So if there's a thug, no. I was gonna say seer, but I feel like Slider is more where Bane's at.
If I'd been more on the ball, I would have said, like, copy and paste that review into the text chat so one of us could have read it in the Bane voice.
Oh, yeah, that would have been a thing.
But,
well.
Oh well. C'est la vie.
We got, okay. Next, we have one new patron at the misting level, and it is Angela.
Oh man, Angela.
That's a name we haven't heard from in a while.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, not the same Angela, but yeah.
Well, there were two. Is this a third?
There were two. This is going to be this is a totally
third
new
Angela. The third Angela.
Angela 3?
Yeah.
Angela 3. There you go. Angela, normally I would say it sucks to be a ska, but you coming in at the ska level, that's A-okay in my book.
Misting level, I said.
Oh, misting level. That's even better.
Disregard everything I just said.
Yeah, everything I just said about ska, they do suck. Yeah.
No one ever said the ska suck, by the way. It sucks to be a ska. That's a different way.
Hey, I came up with it. It's my thing. But
I
you're
read
right.
the
No,
song.
I never said ska suck. You're correct. I never did that. But hey, you know what? You are a connector. You store connection, which for world hopping could be pretty sweet.
Right? Yeah. That's the one that lets you like speak the other languages, right? So,
Lets you do all sorts of cool stuff.
All right. Well, there you go, Angela. Thank you for your patronage. No new emails today, but we have a lot of other stuff. So,
man, if only we had a new email that you could have read, but then you figured out you couldn't read it.
Yeah, if only.
What a world that would be.
Yeah. Welcome to the world of tomorrow.
If you'd like to send us an email, the address is thesanderlanche@gmail.com. Find us on Instagram, Twitter, X. X gonna give it. I'm gonna get it at some point. X gonna get it at some point.
X gonna give it to you. Oh boy.
You can find us on Patreon, where I am still posting my reactions. My first read through Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. I actually need to edit up some more of those episodes to go up. On Discord, if you want to join our Discord server with all the wacky discussions that happen there, you can find a link at the top of our website, www.thesanderlanche.com. Music by Miracle of Sound. Remember, we are doing 5 more chapters for next time, and that's going to bring us. We're getting darn close to the end of this book, people. 5 chapters, then 4, then 4, then 3 in an epilogue, and we are done. So expect. I don't know that it feels like any sort of Sanderlanche has started at this point, but expect that it probably isn't too far off. I honestly can't remember offhand when it starts, but I feel like knowing Brandon as we do at this point, it can't be too far off. Thank you, everybody. Patrons, you guys are awesome. People sending emails, people leaving reviews, getting misting powers. All of you are cool. We appreciate everybody. And wasn't to the time of next. Colo, PS Fashion.